Oh, hi. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Blackdot Miniatures and Paints. Kevin coming back to you this week with a pretty useful video, in my opinion, of how to paint black armor. Now this week we're painting a Batman figure from the DC Universe Miniatures game. However, this applies to any of your Space Marines, this applies to anything with a majority black armor where you want to have nice highlights on it, but you still want it to retain the, okay, that is black, it's not gray, it's not blue, it's not any other color except for black. So how we started this model out is we went with our basic Vallejo black primer after cleaning up all the mold lines, everything like that. From there we went to scale 75, flat black, and to save time we just ran it through the airbrush. Now obviously you can run it straight from the paintbrush, it does not matter, just make sure you're thinning it down. Finally we moved on to Abyssal Blue from scale 75. Here we're just going through and highlighting in your normal fashion. We're picking out all the raised edges of his cape, we're picking out all the raised edges of his armor panels. You'll see here on his thigh in a second that we do about 50% of his leg, trying to leave the darker color towards the bottom where the shadows would naturally fall on this figure. Now one thing that's nice about this, or a problem with this, is you'll see it tints the model an overall very blue color. Now if you're going for a nice midnight blue effect, like he's got, you know, a high moon, full moon in the sky, perfect, we're making some progress. That's not what I was going for here. However, this does allow me to start working towards having a nice highlight, and then we'll be able to refine it later on with some edge highlights of different colors, stepping up the color spectrum. Now, like I was talking about, you can see how this tinted the model an overall blue color. Unfortunately, that's not the desired effect we're going for. So we mixed up Abyssal Blue and Flat Black from scale 75, 1:1, and we started targeting this towards the recesses, but not completely in the recess. We don't want to wipe out the black that is in the deepest recess. However, we do want to sit there and have a little bit of a gradient. We don't want to have paint lines sitting there. We want to just have a nice smooth blend from our deepest recesses to this blue that we established. Now, as I was sitting here looking at this guy, I realized, man, these really deep recesses are not that impressive. So we went ahead and mixed up Dryad Bark and Flat Black from scale 75, 2:1 on the black side, and we started plugging this into the deepest recesses. Now, I'm not sure exactly why. It's probably some hoodoo magic, color science, because reds are on the opposite ends of the color spectrum of blue, or I don't know. But we started plugging this in, and we immediately started to see that the recesses appeared visibly darker. Again, don't know why, hoodoo magic, I don't know. But it did give us the desired effect we were looking for. That's one of the biggest things when you're working with a just flat color such as black. You can't really hit it with washes, you can't really hit it with anything to make it exciting, so you have to just use variants of a dark color and try and make it have the appeal through that manner. Now onto our first highlight color. Here we're using Eshin Gray. Now I had a big debate here whether to use Eshin Gray because it's got bluer tones or Skaven Blight Dinge because it's got some redder tones to it. Ultimately we ended up choosing Eshin Gray. It gave a great effect in the end. I can't complain about it. It's just more than one way to skin a cat, right? So we're going through and we're just edge highlighting this in your typical fashion. We're trying to leave that Abyssal Blue still showing and then start working the highlight towards the highest point where the sun would naturally fall, or moon in this case, where it would naturally fall and cause the most light to be showing up here on Batman. So we're focusing on just smaller and smaller percentages. Say our Abyssal Blue was 80% of the highlight, now we're coming through with the Eshin Gray doing about 40 to 60 depending on how thick the highlight is, just to narrow that down and start getting some nice highlights to show in there without tinting the whole thing to a gray color. ultimately that is the goal of these models, is to go through, have it still appear to be black, not shift to the gray spectrum, not shift to the whites, anything like that. You want the majority of this model to be black, but you also want to have visual interest with your highlights. That way you have a differentiation in the armor panels, you have a differentiation in the folds in the robe. If you had just a black cape here, okay, that can be interesting, but at the same time it does not have a done look. It just looks like you hit it with black. Highlight number 2 that we're going to come with here is Mechanicus Standard Gray. Now we're just doing some very, very thin highlights on top of what we laid down with that Eshin Gray. So now we're into the 60% of our overall highlight being hit with this Mechanicus Standard Gray color. The biggest thing here is just take time with whatever model you're spending the time with. Make sure that you're giving it the highlight to where the armor panels are catching the light, they're changing color, they're showing a differentiation between one leg plate, one chest plate, the ab plates, whatever it is you're working on. So my goal with this video was to just show you this is applicable regardless of what you're painting on. I know my channel is 90% geared towards Warhammer 40,000. However, miniature painting is miniature painting. It doesn't matter what you're painting, these techniques still apply to any model that you're working with. The biggest thing we are doing here though is working with a thinner paint. You can see how well it's flowing off of the brush. We want to make sure that it flows nicely, it dries semi-opaque. That way whenever we come through and it dries, it's not going to be sitting there looking like a stark, just fatty fat highlight. We want it to be nice, mellow. If we need to hit it with a second coat to cause that gradient to shift towards the highlight color, do it, it's awesome. However, take your time on this, don't rush it, because if you get chalky paint lines, it never looks good. Now the final highlight we're coming through is with GW's Dawnstone. Here we're just hitting the last 5-10% of the highlights that we've been working up gradually to. As you can see, this is giving it a really nice effect. It shows all the differences in the armor panels, it shows all the differences of where we worked up to. Now you could have stopped with that Mechanicus Standard Gray, but I just didn't want to. I wanted to keep pushing it, see how far we could go to get away with this before it started being a little bit problematic. I think we're still perfectly good to go here. So whenever you're doing this final Dawnstone highlight, just make sure 110% that you're working with a thin paint and that you're working with a nice tip on the brush to where you can control where the paint's going to go, where everything's going to end up landing, okay? Alright guys, so here's our finished product. I think this dude looks great. We ended up hitting up the other details. We had a Balthazar gold we hit on the belt. We had his skin tones we sat there and worked up. I didn't see any point in show you this. That was not the point of this video. The point of this video is to show you how to do the black. That's all we're worried about. You've seen enough videos on my channel of how to do golds, how to do skin tones. We don't need to worry about that, okay? So hopefully y'all can find something useful to this. Hopefully y'all like the way this turned out. I certainly do. I think this is the best solid black armor I've ever done, and I'm super proud of it. I'm glad I can bring it to you, show it to you. Hopefully you guys can find something to use out of this, and you can take it, run with it, send it to somebody who's maybe starting a Chaos Army, a Black Legion Army, something that is beneficial. If you saw something you like here, guys, please like, comment, subscribe, share the video. That would be super helpful. I'd appreciate the heck out of it, okay? We're up to 250 subs right now. I could not do this without y'all's support. Y'all are awesome. I appreciate y'all all coming back week after week and checking me out. Until next time, guys, bye for now.